This tutorial will show you how to use SPSS statistics to perform exploratory data analysis and descriptive statistics. You will use SPSS to create graphs, frequency distributions, calculate measures of central tendency such as mean, median, and mode, and calculate the standard measures of dispersion such as standard deviation. For this tutorial, you will need to download and open intakedataset.save file to follow along and complete the exercises. This dataset contains data from a set of completed hypothetical intake forms, which is pretty standard for many agencies. Before we begin running descriptive statistics on our variables, let's check out some of the characteristics of this dataset. Let's start by looking at the data view pane. Notice that there are 10 cases. This is a relatively small number. We can also see that we have 6 variables, as you can see from the column headings. Also, notice that again, we have nothing but numbers here, which implies that these are likely numeric variables, and for the most part, we don't know what they mean. When in this view, we can always click on the Value Labels button to display the value labels rather than the numbers. Let's just do it now to take a look at what we have. Bring the mouse up to the toolbar and click on the Value Labels button. Voila! Some of the values have now switched to labels. Some have stayed the same, indicating that no value labels have been created for these variables. We have gender, which seem to have been answered with either male, female, or other. We also have age, which appears to be measured in years. Residence, which seems to include each of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Marital status, which seems to be pretty standard, and 2 other variables for visit and income. Let's switch to the variable view pane of the data editor by clicking on the tab at the bottom, and let's get some more information about these variables. As you can see, in this data set we have our 6 variables. We can now see what visit means, which is the reported service that participants came in for, and income, which is actually reported monthly income. Also notice that they are all listed as numeric types. Also, for 4 of 6 of the variables, specifically gender, residence, marital, and visit, we have value codes. And finally, you will see that the level of measurement for these variables are all set to nominal, as there is no hierarchical order or quantitative difference within the various responses or categories of these variables. Notice, though, that income and age are set to scale, since these are both ratio level variables. The level of measurement is perhaps the most important variable characteristic to consider before deciding on the descriptive statistics you want to run. For instance, for a variable such as age, that is typically measured on a scale, we would be interested in knowing the mean and standard deviation of this variable. We might be less interested in knowing the raw count or percentage that fall in each year of age, especially for larger data sets. But for a variable such as gender, we would be less interested in mean of gender, since that has little meaning, and more interested in the percentage that fall in each category of gender. When first looking at a data set, it is wise to use descriptive statistics to get some idea of what your data look like. Again, the kind of descriptive statistics you will use depend on the level of measurement for each of your variables. For all analysis including descriptive statistics, you must start by accessing the frequencies command in SPSS. From there, the procedures for conducting descriptive statistics will depend on the level of measurement of your variables. Let's begin by running some descriptive statistics on gender. To run descriptive statistics on gender, click on the Analyze menu item at the top of the SPSS window. Open the Descriptive Statistics drop-down menu by bringing the mouse over the Descriptive Statistics and click on Frequencies from the Descriptive Statistics submenu. From the variable list on the left box of the Frequencies option window, highlight the gender variable, which should be displayed as its variable label or name. You can switch between the two by right-clicking on the mouse and selecting your preference. I'm going to go ahead and switch it to variable name since they are just easier to remember for this data set. Highlight gender before clicking on the arrow to select it. To tell SPSS which descriptive statistics to display, we have to click on the button labeled Statistics. So let's do that now. As you can see, SPSS is providing us with various options, including those for measures of central tendency and dispersion. Note that for nominal level variables and other categorical variables, we typically are not interested in taking the measures of central tendency, such as median and mean, and measures of dispersion, such as standard deviation. We might be interested in the mode, which tells us the most frequently occurring category of our variable. So let's click on that one and push continue. We also want to make sure that the display frequency box is checked for all categorical variables, as we are interested in the percentages and counts for each occurring category of our variable. In this case, we're interested in how many identified as male, female, and other. Finally, we might want to include a visual representation of our frequency distribution by clicking on the Charts button. So let's click on that now. As you can see, the Frequencies Chart Options window is now displayed, providing options for choosing bar charts, pie charts, and histograms. For nominal and subordinal variables, you want to choose either bar chart or pie chart. So let's choose bar chart. We also see a chart's values option at the bottom, allowing us to choose either frequencies or percentages. Basically, whether we want our frequencies to be represented by counts or proportions. Either one will give you the same chart, just with different values. Let's leave this as frequencies for now and click continue. Now you can push OK. Notice that our output screen has popped up just as before to display the results of our analysis. Notice that two tables have been displayed, presenting both the statistics table and the frequency table of our variable gender. According to this statistic table, the mode was 2, which was our code for male. We could also see the most frequently occurring observation for gender was male in our frequency table just below. Notice again that there are 5 columns in our frequency table for gender. The first column lists the categories of our gender variable. The second lists the raw count or occurrences for each level of gender. The percentage or proportion of occurrences for each level of gender are under the percent column. And the valid proportion, which adjusts for missing data, is in our third column. The cumulative percent column is not something that is reported as often, but it calculates the percentage of the total frequency below each level of the variable levels. In this case, for example, the cumulative percent for male is 90%, which tells us that 90% reported being either male or female, 50 plus 40, while 100% reported being either male, female, or other, 10 plus 50 plus 40. Not very useful for this data set, but may be useful for variables with a higher number of attributes. If we scroll below to the remainder of our output, we can see that our bar chart has also been displayed. Again, we get the same information we got from our frequency table, but this time we get it in the form of a graph. As you can see, male was the most frequent observation and other was the least frequent. Be advised that you can cut and paste any of the items on this output into a Microsoft Word document.